investment company Blue Orchard, purpose has been at the center of its business for over 20 years, around which it has built a global network to implement its impact investment strategy. Just back from a trip to Indonesia, Chairman Peter Fanconi will tell me what impact investing looks like in 2023. Good morning, Peter.
Good morning, Jade. Thank you for inviting me.
So you just came back from a 4-day field trip to Indonesia. Did you achieve what you set out to do on this excursion?
I would say largely yes. Yeah, the idea was basically to allow investors and leaders from different areas to really get a close view into a country like Indonesia, not from a touristic perspective, but really understand the economy, understand the level of poverty, and really talk and engage with people on the ground who really desperately are in need for support from companies like Blue Orchard, for example.
Now, part of that trip was to show investors the outcome of on-the-ground projects. When it comes to showing progress, what can we measure specifically?
So on the one side, it's measuring by example. That was part of the trip. But on the other side, obviously, for investors who don't have the ability to join us and actually see in the field, it's really about understanding the reports and the measurements. So what we do at Blue Orchard since over 20 years now is really we assess the impact before we approach a project. Then obviously we need to measure what we have assessed and the goals we have set. And lastly, we report back to the investors. So this has been a proprietary tool we have been doing for over 20 years. It's basically incorporating ESG topics, incorporating also the SDGs, but also impact measurements. So it's kind of a best-in-class approach we are using here.
Can you explain or describe some of those goals that you do set?
Sure. I mean, there are dozens of different goals, but to really boil down examples, for example, education. So let's assume we provide the support or credit to a family or an SME, a small business entity. We basically measure the impact on education of the kids of the family. And if there is a positive impact through a well-being or good development of a small entity, then we know that alone basically led to an increase of quality of education. The same goes for healthcare, for example. The same goes for employment rates, and the whole standard or living of these individuals can be measured. If you know how to do it, there are different aspects how you can do that very accurately.
Looking at Indonesia as an example, where a huge part of the economy relies on microfinance, how is the current environment of inflation and high interest rates affecting businesses there? And are you concerned about the pressure individuals face to pay back those loans?
So in Indonesia, we need to understand that it's the fourth largest country in the world, roughly 300 million, out of which roughly 60% are living below the moderate poverty line, which is an excess of roughly $5 per day, and about 10% of the individuals are living in extreme poverty. So just to get a little bit that into relation. So microfinance indeed plays an important role. What we need to understand, however, the market is highly regulated. So there's a banking commission, there's a local national bank. So there are also caps related to loans, for example, because this is a regulated market. This is different, for example, to the informal sectors where you've got shark lenders who can ask any kind of returns. So that is important to understand. And secondly, our loans, they are based on fixed rates. So that's important. The tenor usually is about 18 months. So any client knows from day one what the yield is going to be from his investment. And then thirdly, what we measure is the so-called default rate, and understanding that default rate is historically very low. In Indonesia, it's below 1% over a period of 20 years since we are active in. So default rates are lower than they would be in developed countries, and that's a clear signal that basically the local borrowers are not hit also by a potential increase of rates.
Now, the NGO Share Action recently criticised asset managers for not using their influence to tackle human rights abuses. Now, Blue Orchard is owned by Schroders, also a big asset manager. What can financial institutions do to tackle social issues?
So I think for large asset manager, I think it's a journey, right? And what we need to understand is this journey cannot be basically mitigated in 1 or 2 years. It's really, intellectually understanding where the problems are and how to approach and address the issues. So in the case of Schroders has decided to basically incorporate the experience of Blue Orchard's 24 years of experience. Unfortunately, there's only one Blue Orchard out there, which today is, I think, the benefit for Schroders. But on the other side, we are very open to cooperations. We support each other. This is a very open industry in regards of impact investing, so we share also knowledge. But definitely there's a far way to go for many asset managers. And maybe lastly, I think this is something which really needs to be understood, because on the other side, you've got the demand and you've got the society asking for these very products and really also measuring the impact which is provided. So topic greenwashing, for example. So the pressure is increasing rapidly, and the asset managers, they need to move, and they need to move fast.
Now, over the 24 years that Blue Orchard has been involved in impact investing, how has the world improved? Have we actually reduced poverty?
I think in absolute terms, the answer is yes, which is good news. So the poverty rate has actually decreased substantially, partially really due to the fact of microfinance. There were several, as you know, Nobel Prizes, and there's a lot of research provided in that sector. On the other side, to be honest, it is a drop in the ocean, because it's not only about poverty. Poverty is only an effect, like, for example, fighting the effects of climate change or fighting the effects of malnutrition. So we are always trying to fight the effects. So we are basically trying to solve the problem at the bottom of the pyramid. But the problem we need to tackle is really from the top, where we really understand what is the cause of all these effects. And if we are too little and too late from the top, we can really work and be successful on the bottom, but we will still not achieve the overall goal, which is basically saving also the planet. So that is something which emotionalizes me very much, basically understanding that there's so much more which can be done. We really need a leapfrog. We need to really address the topic of inequality big time. Inequality in developed markets, is maybe not that of a key issue. But if you go into Indonesia, Cambodia, or Kyrgyzstan, or any other frontier markets, inequality is the key topic. And there is a research out there now that there will be tipping points in regards to inequality, where society is going to basically overcome the existing political castes. And this could lead to substantial unrest, will lead to migration, will lead to further, increase of climate effects. There's a very clear correlation between poverty and effects of climate change. Many of us are not really fully aware of that. So there's a lot of topics we need to address and where we need to build awareness. It's not only about fighting poverty, it's really trying to make, as a society, a leapfrog into the right direction.
From an investor perspective, what is so appealing in the field of impact investing today?
So we need to understand we're operating in frontier markets. These are, by definition, growth markets, where you've got 4 or 5 times higher GDP than we have it in developed markets. So it's a very healthy environment. On the other side, these markets are also highly decorrelating from other assets class, and it's a diversification. So to give you an example, impact funds, over the last couple of years, also in 22, they all provided positive returns, whereas we know, it was very difficult to find an asset class not correlating to the effects of what we've seen last year. So it's a very healthy environment, it's a very stable environment, and it provides decorrelation to any kind of asset class you're looking for today.
Thank you, Peter.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, Jade.
And thank you to you for watching FinNews.